Hello, hello, and welcome to the Color Whisperer Show, where we talk about all things home and healing. And today we're going to talk about cozy living. So, there's actually a movement in Finland, Denmark. It's called HYGGE, HYGGE, and it's all about cozy living. And what does that mean? It means curled up on a couch with a good book. It means sipping hot chocolate or hot tea or coffee. Maybe you've got a few other things mixed in there. The only way I drink coffee is this much whiskey and that much cream. It's not really coffee at that point. You put that much of anything else in it. Anyway, but winter's coming. And, we had our first rain here in California last night. And today is kind of, like the sky is kind of gray. And it's chilly. Okay, for us, chilly is different than the rest of the world. Chilly, I know, but it's chilly. And when it's rainy and when it's cold, you just want to curl up with a blanket, get something hot to drink, watch movies, or read a good book, or listen to a good book. And it makes us want to slow down. And I think we need that rest. Summer's all about go, go, go. Autumn's go, go, go. And we have a lot of holidays this time of year too. So, like right now, a lot of people are gearing up for Thanksgiving. Maybe you're already started Christmas shopping, setting up for Christmas. This time of year can get really crazy if you let it. And it's so important to have some time where you are just resting. And I think we need that anyway. It's so important to our psyches. I know I tend to get wound up. It's very easy. And then I sit down like, okay, you know what? I accomplished this today. I love to write lists. I'm a big list maker. And I don't do it on the phone. I've seen the apps and like you click a button and it's like it's done. And like that doesn't have, old school. But crossing off the list and at the end of the day, and it's like, I think I don't like what's on the thing because like I like to see the things crossed off because when on the apps, what it does is it just disappears. So there's still just the list of things to do. It's cool that you don't see, it's easier to read, but I like to see what I've accomplished during the day. That's big for me. And then I can sit down and relax. I can look at the schedule. I'm like, okay. And sometimes I'll go through the list. I'm like, okay, well, this isn't going to happen today or tomorrow. I'll put a day on it. And then I can organize that way. But it's so important for us to have that time to rest. And it's a great gift we can give to ourselves. Everybody says meditate. Okay, I shouldn't say everybody. There's a lot out there meditating, yes? And meditating is very important. And let's face it, a lot of people have trouble meditating. There's a lot of reasons for that. Some people just need the noise. And it's not so much needing noise, it's that they're accustomed to a certain level of chaos. So, for instance, I grew up in a family, 5 people. And there was always something going on. Always something. You never knew what the next phone call was going to bring. There's always people coming over and, visiting. And, there's always something going on. There's 3 kids. There was always something happening, right? There's always noise. Well, my ex, he was an only child to a single parent. And he was a latchkey kid. So he grew up in silence. His grandmother did a lot to raise him, and his grandfather spent a lot of time away from the house, and so it was just the 2 of them. So he grew up with a very different level of noise in the house. And that really became very clear at different points in our marriage. Because for me, I didn't like the silence, and he needed the silence. So we had to compromise on that. It's like, where do we find the peace? How do we each find peace? And, when you have a bunch of people in the house, you don't really get moments of quiet very often. And when you do, they're very special, right? And his personality type needs more silence than my personality type. My personality type needs a lot of stuff going around. So neither one of them is right or wrong. It just is acknowledging what do you need, knowing yourself to know what do you need is very, very, very important. So meditating can be walking. It can be singing. It can be, some people do dishes as a meditation. They have rings that you can walk. Mazes, what are they called? It's not called a maze. Oh, my brain just blanked on it. But where you're just following these stones around. You're just following these stones around and around and around. And sorry. Oh. Okay. Hang on a second. We have a technical issue. Let me fix my technical issue.
Okay.
So anyway, it's very important to take this time of year to find some peace, especially when it is so crazy outside, so crazy with all the, what do we have to do for the holidays, right? All right, we are almost there. All right. Okay, I think we got our technical issues. We have a guest today, but she couldn't get in. So we are, I think we got it fixed. So we'll see. We'll see if we have her in a minute or not.
We'll see if I'm back in a minute or not. But you were talking about the notion of comfort and everything along those lines. And as I think I told you the last time we were on, my aunt was going to have her birthday gathering, and we had that birthday gathering because all she wanted was fun, fellowship, and food. She's actually fighting a little bit of a cold, but she's doing well. But she got exactly what she wanted, which is a simple party. But I think we had somewhere between 40 to 50 folks, the majority of them on her side of the family, which would be the same side as my mom, which is the Lynch family. But my cousin deliberately invited some of her exes, well, not her exes, but her late husband's side of the family as well. So some of the Walkers were there as well because she was a very much an important part of their life. Also, even though Uncle Randy has passed on and everything, but it was definitely some good conversation in that way and all along those lines. And I definitely believe in comforts. That's one of the things I love about my mom's house is she has some comfortable chairs, she's got some comfortable artwork, and she's got some other things that add to the comfort and the ambiance of that particular house, including the swimming pool that she has outside that the boys love to go to that is now covered because we're in the fall, about to be winter month. So she did that sometime back and everything. But there's a thing, including, as I've told you before, the outside area where sometimes you'll see the family of rabbits and the family of deer. That's even part of her enjoyment is watching that family and what they're doing. Actually, it might be rabbit and deer, or it might be rabbit and turkeys, but it's definitely some animals that are back there and all along those lines that are helping her with her comfort level at that particular house and everything. And last but not least, because your guest is here and everything, she was talking about how our we used to jump in the leaves and everything, and we used to even play sports at grandma's house. And would have sometimes the boys and the girls would be involved, whether it was flag football, basketball, or whatever. But she was talking about how she remembers us or some of the kids jumping in the trees and the leaves, and she noticed that her neighbors were jumping in the leaves as well, because that is a fun activity that particularly kids in the South like to do, because you rake the leaves up, which make a nice big bundle. And sometimes one of the fun things, even though it's not that fun for the person that just did all that raking, is you jump in them and it kind of gives you that soft landing. And then, of course, you've got to rake them back up and all along those lines. But it is a fun activity, particularly for young kids to do, as we know that they like to do things that are don't always make sense. But it is fun to just jump into that bundle of leaves. But I'm going to pop out of the area and you can introduce your guests and maybe I'll pop back later. But that leaf jumping can be fun.
So we were talking about cozy living and savoring the moment. And this lady that we're about to meet is so amazing at savoring the moment and truly allowing each moment to be a blessed event. And how she reacts to the world and how she works with the world is so beautiful. I've been honored to meet this woman, and she is so much fun, and I can't wait to see what's going to happen today. So welcome, Cheryl.
Thank you, my good friend Jeanette. And, despite technical difficulties, here I am. And
Yay.
I love how you introduced me because, you know, I in savoring the moment, we just open ourselves up to pure, I want to say magic,
Mm-hmm.
and power. It's the power, like Mark was just saying, like rolling in the leaves, right? I remember doing that with my kids, and I just want to say how much I was looking forward to spending time with you today.
Oh, I'm so excited to have you here today. We're going to have so much fun. So
Yeah.
let's talk a little bit, because what you do is very unique. I just want to spend a couple minutes of,
Mhm.
who are you you're a reverend, you're a life coach, you're an intuitive coach. Let's just, how did you get into this? Tell me a little bit.
Well, I came into my work kicking and screaming the whole way. It was not on my radar at all. And when spirit comes knocking at your door, it's in such a way that you, as you know, right? You have to listen. So that's what happened to me. I was working happy dappy in the corporate world, and one day just had this sudden thirst and desire to learn everything I could. What did it mean to be intuitive? What did it mean to be psychic, even though that was kind of against the way I was raised in terms of, the church, etc. But as I explored my relationship with God, I realized that God would never lead me astray. And so as I listened deeper to the voice, yeah, I had to have the courage. I teach a course called Embrace Your Inner Pirate to really listen to what I felt was important for me, even though it might have disagreed with other people or other organizations. And at the end of the day, 30 years later, coming to the realization that the oneness that is seeking us, we are also seeking. And so I love my life. I love what I've learned. I've been through some incredibly difficult circumstances, as you and I have both shared previously. The courage and the resilience that it takes to stay true to your own heart, even when it literally feels like it's breaking. And so I love working with people who are really keen to embrace this deeper meaning of life, because it's so much more than we have been taught, or so much more that we've settled for.
Yeah.
And the healing that has taken place in my life and with my family, it's so amazing, the close relationships that I have that at one point seemed impossible or difficult to heal. So I'm very grateful and very impressed with the power inside of us. You hear these statements of the unstoppable woman. Well, with God all things are possible, and And that is us. So that's why I love the exploration of the adventure. I wonder what's going to happen next.
Yes. Yes. I'm very intuitive as well. And
Yes, you
I
are.
find it interesting that a lot of people go, oh, I've had a few people, oh, you're a whisperer. Well, you're talking to the devil. And I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
not talking to the devil. First of all, whispering is not, I mean, there's a lot that goes into whispering that has nothing that's science related. It's not, but the healing I do is all done with unconditional love. And I have seen ghosts and I have had psychic moments. Everybody has had psychic moments. We've all had that moment where you're thinking about somebody and then they call. And you're like, oh, I just was thinking about you. Well, that was because you were tuned in, right? And there are people that are very afraid of this and like, oh, well, you know, but these same people will say, oh, God told me. I'm like, wait a second. You do it and God told you, and I do it and I'm talking to the devil. Like, that doesn't make any sense. And
Absolutely.
yeah, it's intuition. It's listening to that quiet spot. Years ago, I was in a Bible study group, and the lady who ran it, I forget her exact words, but she basically said something to the effect of, I don't see God in my life. And, it's LA, baby. I'm like, don't you drive? Because let me tell you, I've had some miracles driving. But really, I see God. I mean, she lived the view out her front window was this gorgeous mountain. I walked into her house that day and I went, oh, look, her flowers are all blooming. Like, this is how God talks. God doesn't talk in the burning bush. Like, that's only in the Bible. He talks in these little quiet murmurings. And we have to be quiet, going back to that cozy living and that we have to be quiet in order to hear him. Because he doesn't shout. When he does, you don't want him to shout, really, because that's when, yeah, you really don't want him to shout. But he doesn't shout, like there's no burning bush. He'll take things away from you that don't belong.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
when he whispers, and we got to be quiet to hear the whispers.
We do. And those are the most profound moments. And those are the moments that help us understand what's happening. It's beyond the intellect. It's the love behind everything. And when I first went through my experience, my mom was mortified. She says, Cheryl, what's happening to you? And I said, God's working through me in a different way than I expected.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, it was really hard for her. And as she made peace with, I'm her daughter, and we had many discussions, and so at the end of the day, it's all about love. And that's where I think, especially today, I love the theme of being cozy. And the fall is such a quiet time to really savor the fact that, number one, I'm alive. Number two, what am I going to do with that aliveness? How am I going to keep it nurtured so that it can share? And we all go through our ups and downs, and I think the important thing is, you as it's funny, I have to tell you this story as a ghost whisperer. You're a color whisperer. I worked with a client who was a designer like you. She
Yeah.
said to me, Cheryl, you're a soul whisperer.
Yes.
And I think that's what we're up to here, because we find comfort because we're going back to home. Home
Yeah.
is the soul, and God, eh, you know, our perceptions of who and what God is, I think, change when we look at the perceptions of who and what we are,
Yes.
because we are expressions of this grace and this love and this beauty and this strength.
Yes. When I had my miscarriage several years ago, I was very angry at him.
Mhm.
I was like, I'd given up on having kids, and I was like, okay, why did you give me hope and then take it away? Like
Yeah.
I didn't even get a heartbeat. It didn't go very long. I didn't even get a heartbeat. So I was like, why are you teasing me? And I was really angry for a while. I still believed in him. I still, there's still a blessing. And then a few weeks ago I had a car accident, and seriously, but for the grace of God, am I here? Because a split second, a foot different, and I wouldn't be here. And I think that we take for granted that there's tomorrow. And why aren't we living our best life? Because, I've got years to do that. No, we don't know how long we have to do it. We have to start creating, what's our legacy? What do we want to leave behind? What it's something we have to look at every day. And I mean, I'm guilty of it too. It's like, got this list a mile long, and what do I do? And sometimes, like, okay, creating my legacy doesn't make it on the list, but it is so important that we take the time that we do have, tell our friends, tell our family that we love them, let them know, hey, most people, they don't really say all the words until they get to the funeral. Then you go to the funeral and people are standing up and saying, oh, they meant this to me, they meant that to me, da da da. And wouldn't it be much nicer if we could get that while we're alive? Like, how much better would we feel if we knew how much support we had? I mean, lots of, oh, nobody would show up at my funeral. We get in those depressed states, right? It's like, oh, well, nobody cares if I'm alive, da da da. But then, if you could stand up and I'd like to think we get to view our funeral so we could see all that. I'd like to think that. That seems fitting, doesn't it? And to be able to hear that praise of how many people's lives you've touched. I call them God moments. I think you have another word for it that I forget right now, but it means very something similar. And we never know when a simple gesture is going to change somebody's world, and then the other person doesn't tell. And I think that that's a really important thing in creating more humanity in the world, to let those God moments be known. So tell me what your phrase for that is, because I forget.
Well, when you and I first connected, I was just drawn to the joy and the light and the creativity within you. And I'll never forget this, because we just met, and I said, wait just a minute. We need to experience a soul savoring here.
Yeah.
And just savor the soul. And I'm so glad that you're still here. That I just met you. I just love who you are and what you represent. And where's my easy button? I had it out.
Okay, so you gotta give the backstory.
I gotta give the backstory with this. So I meet this amazing woman on this new networking organization we belong to, which is incredible. Got to put a plug in for them because they draw the best people. MPN.
Yeah.
And
my personal network. It is amazing.
Oh, it's as a heart-centered leader or entrepreneur and wanting to change the world, yeah, you got to check it out. So Jeanette and I meet the first time, and her energy is just jumping off the screen at me, and I'm going, I got to meet this woman. And from the time we connected, it was just like joy exuding. So that's when I know that, I've met someone who is letting love lead their life. And and we shared some really hard moments that we both had, and how it changed us, and how it really calls us to this true meaning of life. And I really encourage people to pre-write your memorial, because it'll help you understand how precious you are. And if you've not taken time out to enjoy and appreciate that preciousness, then you've missed the point of your life. It's like, it's that simple, right? So we were talking about how complicated or difficult we can make life, when really it's actually very simple and very easy. So one day in the mail, a couple weeks ago, and I'm having a moment. I'm having one of those days, right? And I'm going, oh. So I go up to check the mail, and there's an easy button in the mail, sent anonymously. And I'm going, oh. And it was a profound moment and a gift of literally the universe saying back to me, Cheryl, remember? So I had no idea who sent this because I speak to everybody I know about how can we uncomplicate our lives and make them easier. And we were chatting one day and he said, did you get your easy button? And it was like, so these gifts that we can share with each other because we've embraced this sumptuousness inside of ourselves. Like that's to me, that's the meaning of life.
Yeah.
And thank you
You're
because
welcome. It was
because to have that be returned was just like, thank you. I needed that little lift that day.
you know, and it was just like I asked you for your address while we were talking because I'm like, I gotta send her an easy button, and I didn't know like Amazon is funny. Like I didn't know if it was gonna show my address or not. But then I didn't hear from you. I'm like, okay, it didn't show because I would have heard from you if it did. So I'm like, did you get it? And of course, Amazon lets you know when you did get it, so that's cool. But I mean, there's so many times that we can make an impact on somebody by it doesn't have to take a lot of time, doesn't have to take a lot of energy, it doesn't have to take a lot of money, but we can leave a positive impact. And admittedly, there are days when I'm not good at this, but I that is my desire is to leave good moments for people and to make the day better for the people I come in contact with, you know?
Well, well, yes, and I think that's the soul savoring that we each need to remember, and really, in neuroscience, the more that we spend time in these feelings of appreciation, the more we're changing the brain, we're optimizing the brain. And I had a thought the other day, and I'm going to be doing some writing on it, that time is not a quantity, it's the energy of love. And that just changed my whole perception of how I do things because am I doing things because it's pressure and I need to get it done? And how am I going to get it done? Am I coming from worry, fear, or stress? Because that's not the point of life. And I had an out of body death experience a few years ago. And what I experienced was the juxtaposition of how humanity has literally have almost destroyed itself because of stress and worry and fear. And on the other hand, it's like the bliss of just letting go to something that is big enough to hold us
Yeah.
and to really trust that and believe it and to go beyond that believing into the knowing. And so it's a real journey. And that's where I'm very grateful for meeting you because it's nice to know that there are uh, people that are such conduits of this love, even though they could have rightly used different experiences in their lives and become very bitter,
Mm.
but you didn't.
Well, I've always used the song "Tub Thumpin', Chumbawamba." I get knocked down, but I get up again. That's a drinking song, and I don't drink that much, but I get knocked down, but I get up again. Like you ain't never gonna keep me down. I mean, and that is, when I get like, oh, got knocked down again. You're never gonna keep. Another one was, was it Matthew Wild? I think never gonna break my stride.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
It's like I use music like no, I'm like you can knock me down, you can try, but like I don't quit that easy, and I think none of us gets out of this world without some trials.
Hmm.
And what makes you who you are is how you react to them. there are some people that, you know, XYZ happens and then, oh, I'm a victim for the rest of my life. Well, no, you're choosing that. Why would you choose to be a victim? There's a lot of unconscious stuff that happens anyway, but why would you consciously choose that? It doesn't make any sense. And so, my mother, she had polio when she was little. She never said the word can't. So I grew up with, you don't say can't. And I grew up with I get up again. My mother actually, when she was in school, they took her out of regular school and they put her in a school for polio. I don't know what's the right word. People who had polio will use that. And one of the tools that they taught her was how to fall down. And so she was probably 9, 10. It took her a while to learn how to walk again. And they would literally take all these children of different capabilities and they would teach them how to fall down, and then they would literally push them. Now,
Wow.
I don't know that you could do that in today's world, but for my mother, it was an incredible skill and one that she used throughout her lifetime. And I saw her fall a few times and she didn't get hurt. And she said, well, that's because I know how to fall. They taught her how to fall. And it literally did save her. And there was one time that she fell and she got really bruised up. And I'm like, I think you're lying to me, Mama. I don't think you fell because I've seen you fall. And that's a story that remains to be the truth to be told if there is a different truth. But it was just, I've seen her fall enough times that and she knew how to fall. So there's an element of being the right preparation can help you get back up again and can help you not be so hurt. And by doing this savoring, by having a good relationship with God, by knowing your own strength and your power, it's that teaching you how to fall so that you can get up again with more ease the next time.
That's a profound metaphor and a very important one because I think right now, considering all the change we're going through, it's so important to make the decision. And this is where I appreciate the book, Power of Decision, which has really impacted my life. The power of decision is such that you make an agreement with yourself and you practice the personal integrity to uphold that agreement. Because at the end of the day, I think it comes down to each one of us doing that because that's what affects the quantum field.
Yeah.
And so, and it's like, well, the power of thought, it's very simple. What I think I create. So is this thought empowering me? Is it making me feel alive? If it's not, then it's time for a course correct. And that's why I love the work that you and I do, because really it's about bringing comfort and faith and strength to the parts that can feel a little wonky or weak. And can we start having a little bit more fun with them too? because there's an invincible power here we all are tapped into. So let's decide to use it and use it well. And use it to grow and to heal the hurt.
Yeah. So it's coming up on the holidays. So people are going home for Thanksgiving or for Christmas. They may be seeing family they only see once a year. Maybe there's strained relationships. Maybe strained relationships will happen. Everybody's stressed from all the to-do list. So do you have any tips or do you have any methods to
Absolutely
counteract all of that?
Yeah, absolutely. Because especially Christmas and Thanksgiving, because so here's my first tip or tool. You're not your past.
Mm-hmm.
Stay in the present and what kind of present do you want to create?
Mhm.
Because these holidays will bring up memories from the past, and if they're not pleasant, change it. You're not that person back there, and nor should you entertain the hurt. And this is where hurt can be insidious. So there's a beautiful phrase that I have really taken to heart, written by a man called Peter Michelson. He's in the States. He's where you are. And he said that we have an unconscious collusion to stay in suffering. So just recognize that and notice where you go. Like, are you going to the past? Are you going to the hurt? Or are you going to be the power of decision and create the reality that you want to live in the moment? Because that power is up to you. And that's where I think hurt can be insidious. And if we're not recognizing that it's taking us over, and we have these different sub personalities that live inside of us depending on our moods, right? And it's like, oh, isn't that interesting? 10 seconds ago, I was remembering a past hurt. In this 10 seconds, I choose to make this Thanksgiving the most amazing experience I've ever had. And it can happen in seconds.
You never know what the phone's going to ring.
Yep.
You never know who you could meet and say, hey, I'm alone, you're alone, or, you know.
Yep. Exactly. And so rather than being overcome by the hurt, use the hurt, leverage the hurt. The obstacle is the way. So how can I take this hurt and make something really beautiful out of it? And and those are those moments that are beyond description. It's just like, whoa, like going through the drive-through and paying for the last person's, or paying for the person behind you, totally random, anonymous, and yet, oh my gosh, the feeling that invokes is amazing. So
there's a gift in giving. I mean, it's not just I received something, it's I got to give something.
Yeah. And knowing that you did, and knowing that you've impacted, like you've made someone think, you've stopped them in their tracks. Just like that easy button. It was like, oh.
Speaking of the easy button, I was glad that you enjoyed my leaf story and everything along those lines. I did have a question for you, Dr. Brewster, and everything, because one of the things that I think I mentioned to Jeanette and others is that sometimes it can be something simple that can give you great joy, and all along those lines. I mentioned the leaf jumping and everything, but even though it is a necessity of life and everything along those lines, sometimes you can get comfort from something as simple as the sound of the laundry rolling and everything like that. So sometimes that water and the feeling of the laundry, or even the tumble, can give you some simple joy. And even though I'm looking and they probably need doing and everything, the dishes and even the feel of the water and the soap on your hands can be a simple comfort and a simple joy, and all along those lines. So I just wondered if you could talk about those simple joys that sometimes we don't recognize as being simple joys, and we're sitting there fretting over doing them, but sometimes they can add to that simple joy. Because I hate to say it, but sometimes if I'm in the middle of a laundry, just that sound of the laundry rotating can be something that can calm the mind, and all along those lines.
Yeah, and those are brilliant examples. I love what you said, because and I do this. I keep a joy journal, and I'll just jot down like little things like that. And then over time, when you see how rich and amazing those experiences are, I think we're really embracing the power that we do have, that the autonomy that we have. And something as simple as that can actually be life-changing, especially over time. So these little things are not to be taken for granted, and so often they are. So that's a very good point. So yeah, keep a joy journal, and then on the days when maybe, something's going on, or I'm just getting over a cold, I'm not feeling good, and it's like, okay, where's my joy journal? And sometimes it'll be pictures I put together, and it's like, oh. And the cool thing that you've just mentioned, Mark, is because it is something that has happened to you. You cannot discount that. And that's where I think we're really embracing this whole idea of spirituality at its core. It's not separate from me, it is me. I am this comfort. I am this appreciation. I am this power. So that's a very good point you've brought up.
And before I turn it back over to you and Jeanette, along those same kind of lines and everything, I had told Jeanette last week that my aunt was celebrating her 80th birthday, and she wanted a very simple birthday. She just wanted food, fellowship, and friendship, and all along those lines. And definitely, she had that. And here, her and my mother, actually, it must be a lot going on both coasts because I'm on the East Coast here in North Carolina, and they are both her and my mother, so the two sisters of the three living sisters now, and I don't know what the third one is, but the two of them are fighting the cold. But in talking to them, they were both reflecting on last Sunday and those moments of joy of watching the family members talk to each other, enjoy the food, catch up with each other, because some of them hadn't seen each other for a matter of months or maybe even in some cases a year or two and everything. And those simple joys were probably helping them in their healing process.
Mm.
I'll turn it back over to you too. But yeah, love your spirit, Dr. Brewster. Reverend Brewster, I heard from Jeanette that you had a very wonderful and beautiful spirit, and I can pick that up even through the airwaves, even though, like I said, I know you're over there, I believe in California where Jeanette is, and I'm here in North Carolina. Just pick up that spirit of joy that you bring to life.
Oh, thanks, Mark. Yeah, I'm from Canada, and you've described what Jeanette and I first experienced when we first met. So it's all about the joy.
So we have a little bit of time left, and I want to show off a little bit of one of the things that really struck me with you, and I think is something that we get too busy to do. And I want you to talk about the necessity of savoring, what that means, and like how to do it, because that's one of the things that, to me, I see the joy really spark in you, and it is something that we forget. We get busy, and it's such a huge element in creating joy in our lives. So
Absolutely. So in this moment,
yes.
in this moment, to breathe and welcome this precious moment in time, and to welcome how wonderful it is to even have the awareness of savoring.
Mm.
And what does savoring mean? Soul savoring means I'm just going to slow down. I'm going to pause and give myself the chance to just be. And in that beingness, appreciate that I am alive. And I always invite people to consider that at one point, your expiry date here on this earth will be up. So enjoy it now. And also, because I did have that out-of-body death experience, and I was told, you've got a second chance, come back. And these are the words I was told as I came back was, whatever you do, Cheryl, do it with love. Otherwise, you've missed the point. And to invite the sweet savoring, and no matter what you do, to just take that moment before I pick up this phone to phone my person, I'm just going to spend a few moments in love here. Love the fact that I can even phone them. Love the fact that they're alive. Love the fact that I'm alive. Now, what would happen if every time before we phoned someone, we did that?
Oh my God.
And especially in business, because I look at business as being a spiritual vehicle So am I phoning them for a transaction, or am I phoning them because there's something really special about my business that I got to share with them?
Mm.
So I'm honoring them with my business, filling a need that they have. And on the same hand, really appreciating that in the infinitesimal um, number of possibilities, that that particular person is the one I'm meant to connect with in this moment. Neil deGrasse Tyson talks about how we're born, we've got something like a 10 billion chance of even being born. And he says, do you know how lucky it is that you even get to die? Because how many souls have not even been born? And that just really touched my heart. And it made me realize the significance of this profound opportunity and responsibility that I have to really honor the preciousness of my own life, to not take it for granted. And then to meet someone like you where we can just go, and I just invite everyone who listens to this podcast. You're changing the world every single time you take a moment to just pause and savor your soul.
Mm.
So when you do that, you will be savoring the soul of others. And that's what we need, are souls that have remembered to savor themselves. Otherwise, and I've done this myself, otherwise it's too easy to burn out.
Oh, absolutely.
We can be real givers. And so there's, with the soul savoring, it keeps you in the integrity of what love really is. And as women, we can give so much, right? And so so that's where I see a distinction between, let's say, gratitude and soul savoring. Gratitude is the doorway, and soul savoring is on the other side.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. So tell us a little bit about what you do and how we can work with you.
Absolutely. So what I do is I love supporting thought leaders and people in business or spiritual seekers, therapists. I work with a lot of people in the mental health industry and the wellness industry. I support people through transition and change. And sometimes that change is difficult, and sometimes it's so exciting. It's like, what do I do with this? So transition is working with your intuition. It is going into the unknown, and it's being able to reframe or reinterpret what's happening so that you can work with it and use the obstacle as the path through, and come out the other side going, wow, it really is like, I never would have thought that I could have done that with this. And so that's what I do. I work one-on-one. I lead my own masterminds, and I also work in the corporate world, offering transformational communication sessions, taking conflict resolution and reframing what that looks like. Conflict is actually progress wanting to happen, but we haven't necessarily been trained that conflict can be opportunity. And whenever I teach, I always ask people, how many of you guys feel really good about conflict? And no hands, very few hands generally go up. So it's like, okay, we're on to something here. What if we can take conflict and turn it around? And the way that we do that is we come to peace inside, and then we learn to work with it on the outside. So so that's how I work with people. And like you, working with color and design and the physical world, there's something that happens that you work with before the physical, and we're very similar in the way we work.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that there is so much recognizing there's a silver lining. It's very Pollyanna, but I've been through several very difficult deaths in my life. I've been through several difficult things. And in my world, they were just normal. But other people have looked at my world and went, Jeanette, how did you do that? And I'm like, you got to just kind of get up and keep breathing, and you put one foot in front of the other and you just keep doing it. But the strength and the skill sets that I learned from just keeping breathing, from just keep putting one foot in front of the other, I wouldn't wish any of these things on my worst enemy.
Mhm.
And I'm grateful for what I've learned through the process. And I truly believe that there is a silver lining for everything. And I've seen this a lot in deaths, and it's not something somebody wants to hear. There's a silver lining. Oh, whoever it is died. Oh, there's a silver lining. But it does become a point in the grief process where you can look at it and say, oh, maybe it's 6 months down the road. Maybe it's a year down the road. It might be 5 years down the road.
Mm-hmm.
My mother dying, I didn't see it at the time, and it took me a little while to see it, but there was a huge gift, because there was some stuff that came out about family dynamics, about how I related to the world,
Mm-hmm.
that I would have never seen had my dad died first.
Mm-hmm.
And there were things that, some of which she knew, and she never would have said a word.
Mm-hmm.
And it truly was her last gift to me, was her death. And I don't mean, oh, thank God she's dead, but there was a gift in discovering myself
Yes.
in her death. And what I remember very, very distinctly is, there were days when, like, I didn't eat. A friend called me up, and it was like 2:00 in the afternoon. I'm like, oh, I suppose I have to eat something today. She says, what do you mean you're not eating? I'm like, no. There's a casserole on my porch the next day. I'm like, I don't want to eat. But there was, I lost my train of thought.
While you're getting that train of thought, I was just
Oh,
going to say,
yeah, go ahead.
hopefully you got it and everything. It's very profound what you just said, Reverend Brewster, and everything. You said it earlier because a good friend of mine, and it actually ties into what Jeanette is talking about and everything. He oftentimes, because he was doing some work today, because he's a caretaker. Well, actually, they're co-caretakers, as Jeanette knows, because I talked about him. He's one of my best friends, but he's a co-caretaker with his mom, because his mother is elderly, and he's a multiple stroke survivor, and all along those lines. But they are caretakers. Get the words out, Mark. They are caretakers, and he was going to the bank taking care of this matters. But he oftentimes will say that his favorite quote, and I never heard anybody say it, but you just said it, is that we all know our birth date. None of us know our end date, and all along
No.
those lines. So that is his favorite quote: is that we all know our birth date, but none of us know our end date. So we need to live life to the fullest while we are living. Is kind of what my friend Ray Pascal is kind of encouraging us to do, because we all know that birth date, but none of us know what the end date will be, except for the powers that be above.
Yeah, and thank you, Mark. That just so ties in what Jeanette was talking about, and when that end date comes, the learning that comes with it, we have no idea how we're going to react or respond. None. In fact, I just helped a client who 2 years ago, her husband passed, and she just went into it, hit her just this last week, and we had to really spend some time and dig deep. And to go back to what you were saying, Jeanette, is I so appreciate that, if we could just take a step back and look at our lives like a canvas, right? And we're painting these pictures. And what you experienced with your mom is like this profound almost like stained glass, where you get to see the beauty of it
Yeah.
before, during, and after the fact. Does that kind of capture what you were?
Yeah. Well, what I was remembered is, so one day I looked in the mirror, and I do look a lot like my mother, but that really hit me was how much I look like her. And I looked at my hand and I went, she's literally inside me,
Inside
in
you?
my
Yeah.
DNA. I am part of her. So she didn't die because I'm still here.
Exactly. And oh, so this is one of those sweet savorings. Can we just take this moment and imagine all the ancestors, and we're the ones who've arrived at the other side. And it's like we're saying to our whole lineage, you did it, you made it. And we take the best, and we, this is not Pollyannish. It might sound like it, but I would be a defender for Pollyanna any day, because Pollyanna is grit.
Oh, yeah.
It's like Viktor Frankl coming from the concentration camp. The thing that kept that man alive was knowing that he would create a form of therapy that would help so many people when he got out. And because of that man, humanity was changed. And Jeanette, I think it's important for each one of us to know, and this is the soul savoring, because of me and I exist, and the love that I bring to the world, humanity is changing.
Yeah.
And I felt that, as will every person that hears your beautiful podcast with your amazing heart that took all of this pain and worked with it like an oyster and the pearl. So thank you, my friend, for the work of art and beauty that you have brought to the world, and that you represent, and that you now share in your podcast and the many things you do.
Thank you so very much. I've so much enjoyed having you on today. I knew we were going to have a blast. We're going to close the show, but I want to give you a chance to, a couple last words. Give us your website. How do we connect with you?
Yes, theintuitivelife.com is my website, and contact information, you can go from there, or I'm on LinkedIn and Facebook, and anyone who hears this podcast and is drawn to what you and I have discussed today, please be reminded of how important and powerful your contribution to yourself is. Savor that. And the more you do, the more you will be making the impact in your own life and the world that you want to make. And I would love to hear from anyone who wants to reach out. I do offer a complimentary intuitive hello, and that can just be booked. My Calendly is missing on my website right now for some reason, so just email me at cheryl@theintuitivelife.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being on today. Mark, do you have a question?
I had a lighthearted question, and it actually play into what I know you're going to do and everything like that and everything. But I remember that when, speaking of ancestors, when a good friend of mine was living, Baba Chuck Davis and everything, he was a well-renowned dancer and everything. He used to enjoy a good meal, and he used to enjoy some good savory desserts. He had certain desserts that were his favorites, and all along those lines. So even though, like I said, none of us will know till we get to the end time, I would just run in Reverend Cheryl, if you think that sometimes, even though they're not here, that some of our ancestors are getting to enjoy the food that they might have savored when they were here on Earth, and all along those lines. Because we're going to go out with Kendu Spice, and there are some delicious food and everything. But I just wondered if you thought that the ancestors, as spirits, got to enjoy some of the foods that they enjoyed when they were living.
I think that yes, I it's just like the joy, right? It's like this connection that we have with them, is And I don't know why, and I hope I just I have to say I love the American accent and the foods and especially a down south accent, and it's just like, oh, there's I do improv and there's these parts that come out of me in improv and it's like, where did that come from? I don't know. I must have an American in my ancestry somewhere. But I would totally agree with that. We are a multiverse. Let's enjoy the like as Jeanette was saying, it's just so much more than what we think. So let's have fun with it.
Yeah. Did you see Ghosts? Do you watch Ghosts? So on Ghosts, they can smell the food.
Yes.
They can't eat it, but they can smell it. And I think, well, I've seen some ghosts, and I believe that, yes, they do get to participate in our world to some extent. Maybe can they taste the food? I don't know. They can smell the food. They can remember. They can, I think that.
And yes, and I've always appreciated when out of the blue I'll be smelling a particular smell.
Right?
And you didn't make it up. Where's the smell coming from? It just appears. So it's like, well, of course, right? It's like, thank you. So savoring. Let's savor on their behalf, right? I'm gonna love this. I'm gonna love this turkey, right, on their behalf.
Yeah, savor on their behalf, and not only that, but I know that even my mother, who I mentioned earlier, and my grandmother, my mother and aunt, they oftentimes remember the smell and the ambiance of my grandmother's kitchen. And my grandmother has been gone for decades, but even though they are still here living, that's one of them savoring moments, because I've been in rooms where they have conversated and even remembered how she was in the kitchen and some of the smells and some of the ambiance that was going on in that kitchen. I'm sure there'll be some recollections of her in 2 weeks during Thanksgiving, meeting recollections of my grandmother and everything. But I do think that some of those memories are embedded in our memory, and they stay in our memory because we remember what was going on at that time and all along those lines. Because one of the things that I know, because we just, like I said, had Aunt Julie's birthday party and everything, but even at Thanksgiving, one of the things that we will do is we will acknowledge those that have passed on, because a lot of times the people that are there might be less because other people have moved on into heaven or the other dimensions and everything. But we, as those here on earth, will reflect and remember them, even though they're not there with us in the physical form. They're probably there with us in the spirit form, but they're not with us in the physical form. And we will go ahead and remember them and have plenty of memories of them, whether it was my aunts and whether it was my uncles in sitting in certain chairs because they were comfortable in those chairs and wanted to get a certain view of the sporting activities, or whether it was other things that were going on that will give us our memory. Even my other aunt that passed away, that was Aunt Kellen, that died of MS, some of the ways that she got around in her later years. But there's a lot of those memories that will surface and re-pop up and everything, because they're just pleasant memories, even though they're not with us anymore.
And like Jeanette mentioned, these essences live on inside of us, and energy can never be created or destroyed. It's simply transformed. And so whatever dimension that they are in now, we can enjoy them and we can appreciate them. And the same for us, right? I often feel my grandmother around me, and just, I just appreciate the love that my grandmother instilled in her family, which my mom instilled in my family. There's a family tradition of taking care of other people, the generosity and the love and the kindness that I'm so grateful for, that was passed down as my family, is that being the most important thing. And wow, what a tribute, right? So with your Thanksgiving coming up, gratitude for everyone who was a part of our past so that we could be here today to carry on the message of life and grit and faith and the soul savoring.
The last thing before we hit Kendu Spice, Jeanette, that I was going to ask, because you just mentioned it, and I know she had another guest that was in that space as well. And Jeanette knows because I shared it with her. I have another dear friend that I work on this network with and just work in general with on a number of things, including co-MCing and all along those lines, because he does it for two sports franchises here, our Durham Bulls and our hockey team, the Carolina Hurricanes. But I do have some friends, including a young lady that's involved in that space as well. So I've got a couple of friends that are involved in the improv space. So when you mentioned that you were an improv performer, I'm going like, yes, I know that kind of stuff, because I think there's that famous quote that y'all have that y'all live by. I think it's as is or something like that, or and if, something like that. It's like the motto of improv performers and everything. But I am familiar with that art form because of my friends Yvette Holder and Jatovi McDuffie. So have been in that space now for decades and all along those lines, even though they're younger than me. I think they're in their mid 50s.
Well, I think it would be great. Yeah, if we all looked at life as improv, like how much more fun is that than, oh, I got to do this. No, I could do this, right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, on that note, let's go get some Kendu Spice.
Yeah. Kendu Spice time.
You know how people love to enjoy food and don't understand how to flavor their food or how to replicate a meal? They're interested in supplements but don't know where to begin? Well, what I do is I take the guesswork out of enjoying flavor and wellness with my flavorful spice blends so that they can create delicious meals with healing benefits. Kendu Spice was created to help cooks at any level enjoy healing through food. Every spice blend was designed to give added health benefits of natural herbs. Every blend is complete. There's no need to add any additional spice for a delicious meal. Saving you time and money while adding supplements to your meals can be both tasty and fun. My earliest memories in the kitchen began with my father, Kenny Kendu Bond, so it was fitting that I would name this line after him. I have always looked to natural remedies to supplement the body, and I found myself hiding herbs and minerals in foods for my family. That's when it hit me. Everyone needs Kendu Spice. Everyone should be having this. It's an exclusive brand for cooks at any level who want to create flavorful dishes with healing benefits that can satisfy the body and soul. Add a little spice to your life. Give Kendu Spice a try.